The morning the loan officer called, I was sitting in my car in the parking garage at my office building, eating a granola bar and answering emails before my 9 a.m. meeting. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I had a dentist appointment later that afternoon that I'd been dreading all week, and I kept thinking, at least after today the worst part is over. I did not know the worst part hadn't even started. Is this Kira Lawson? Yes, speaking. Ms. Lawson, I'm calling from Meridian Home Lending regarding the co-signed mortgage application for the property at 4112 Dunmore Circle. We have a few questions about the income documentation before we can move forward. I stopped chewing. I'm sorry, which property? There was a pause on his end. Then he read the address again. I still didn't recognize it. Ms. Lawson, you're listed as the primary cosigner on this loan application. Your signature is on file. Were you not informed of this by the borrower? I sat in that parking garage for a long time after I hung up. Long enough that I missed my 9 a.m. meeting. Long enough that the granola bar went stale in my hand. The borrower was my sister. Let me back up. Because if I start from that phone call, you're going to think this came out of nowhere. It didn't. It came from a very long, very slow pattern that I had spent most of my adult life convincing myself was just how our family worked. My sister is 7 years older than me. She's always been the one my parents described as spirited, which is the word people use when they mean difficult, but we love her anyway. She's gone through money the way some people go through paper towels. Quickly, without thinking, and always reaching for more before the last one was even used up. 2 divorces, 1 bankruptcy she doesn't talk about, a series of business ideas that never quite launched. She's not malicious, I told myself for years. She just doesn't think ahead. I, on the other hand, had spent my entire 20s being careful. I'm 31 now. I work in financial compliance. The irony is not lost on me. I started my career at 23, doing bookkeeping for a small firm, got my certifications, moved up slowly, saved aggressively. I bought my own condo at 28. I have a credit score that my mortgage broker called, and I quote, genuinely beautiful, which is exactly why my sister wanted it. I found out later, much later, after I'd pulled every thread there was to pull, that she had tried to get the mortgage on her own first. She'd been turned down. Then she'd gone to a broker who told her that if she had a cosigner with strong credit and documented income, the application would almost certainly go through. And so she went to my parents, and my parents told her that I would probably say no if she asked directly, but that if they could just get my signature and a few documents, my mother handled the paperwork. I want to let that sit for a second because I think it's important. My mother, who I had trusted completely, who I had handed documents to before without reading them thoroughly because she's my mother, is the one who put the cosigner paperwork in front of me. It was mixed in with some other things she'd asked me to sign about updating the family's shared storage unit lease and a form for my grandmother's medical records release that needed a family member's signature. 3 documents. I signed all 3 without reading them fully because I was at her kitchen table on a Sunday evening after a long week, and because I trusted her. Here's what I did not know when I signed. I did not know my sister was buying a $340,000 house. I did not know she had already missed 2 car payments in the past year. I did not know that as the cosigner, I was legally responsible for the full loan amount if she defaulted. I did not know that my name being on that application had already triggered a hard inquiry on my credit report, the kind that can ding your score and raise flags if you try to refinance your own mortgage within a certain period, which I had been planning to do that spring. I did not know any of this until a loan officer called me on a Tuesday morning to clarify my income documentation. Because my sister had listed my annual salary incorrectly, she'd inflated it, and the numbers weren't matching what the IRS had on file. That was the mistake that unraveled it, not my sister's conscience, a typo on a form. I called my mother first. I don't know why. Maybe because I still needed to believe there was a version of this where it was a misunderstanding, where she'd say, "Oh, sweetheart, I thought I explained that document to you. I'm so sorry, let me fix this." She didn't say that. What she said was, "Your sister really needs this, Kira. She's got nowhere else to turn." You have good credit, you're stable. It's not like it costs you anything right now. It cost me my name on a $340,000 mortgage that I didn't agree to. You signed the papers. You hid them in a stack of other documents. You should read what you sign. I genuinely did not know what to do with that. I sat there holding my phone and I thought about every time I had helped my family financially. The $4,000 I'd lent my sister when her second marriage was falling apart and she needed a deposit on an apartment, never repaid. The $200 I'd given my parents when their furnace broke 2 winters ago, because I said I'd give it to them, not lend, because I didn't want it to be awkward. The time I'd taken 2 weeks off work to help my mother after her hip surgery, losing out on freelance work I'd been counting on. I had never once asked for anything back. I had never made them feel guilty. I had just been the one in the family who was good with money, and I had slowly, gradually let that become my entire identity in their eyes, not a person with my own plans and limits, but a resource. And now my resource had a name on a mortgage I hadn't consented to. I didn't blow up. I want to be clear about that, because I think people expect that kind of story to involve screaming or crying or some dramatic confrontation at the dinner table. That's not who I am. When I get really truly angry, the cold kind of angry, not the hot kind, I get quiet. I start thinking. I went home that evening, and I sat at my desk, and I opened my laptop, and I spent 4 hours researching. Here is what I found: a fraudulently obtained co-signature, meaning one obtained through misrepresentation or without informed consent, can be challenged legally. It is not a simple process and it is not guaranteed, but it is possible. What matters is documentation. Can you prove you didn't understand what you were signing? Can you prove the circumstances were designed to obscure the nature of the document? I had the email my mother had sent me that Sunday asking me to come over to sign a few things for the storage unit and Grandma's records. I had no email, no text, no conversation of any kind mentioning a mortgage co-signature. I had my own financial record showing that my sister had never discussed this property purchase with me. I also had something else. Because I work in financial compliance, I know a few people. One of them is a woman I'll call my colleague. She's been in mortgage lending for 15 years and has seen more fraudulent applications than she can count. I texted her that night. She called me back within 20 minutes. Kira, she said when I finished explaining, what you're describing is mortgage fraud. Not kind of fraud, not sort of fraud, actual federal-level fraud. Using someone's signature without their informed consent to secure a loan is not a gray area. It is a crime. I did not call my sister that night. I did not call my parents. I called an attorney. I want to be honest here. I didn't know for certain yet what I was going to do. Part of me still wanted a version where we could resolve this quietly, where my sister would realize how badly she'd crossed a line, and we could figure out a way to remove my name from the application before the loan closed. That was still possible. The loan hadn't closed yet. The officer had called me because of the income discrepancy, which meant the application was still in review. If I acted fast enough, I might be able to have my co-signature removed before it became legally binding. My attorney confirmed this. She also confirmed that if I reported the income discrepancy, the inflated salary my sister had listed under my name, to the lender directly, the application would almost certainly be denied entirely. Because that wasn't just a cosigner issue. That was falsified financial documentation. That was its own problem. "What do you want to do?" she asked me. I thought about my mother saying, "You should read what you sign." "I want my name off that application," I said, "and I want to make sure this can't happen again." I called the loan officer back the next morning. I told him I had not knowingly co-signed that application. I told him I had documentation showing that the nature of the document was misrepresented to me. I told him I was prepared to submit a formal dispute through the appropriate channels and that he should be aware there was a discrepancy in the income figures listed under my name that I had not authorized. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said he would need to flag the application for review and put the process on hold. I said that was fine. Then I sent a certified letter to the lender's fraud department. Then I called my attorney back and she sent her own letter. It took 11 days. 11 days during which my sister called me 4 times, my mother called me 7 times, and my father, who is usually the quiet one, the one who stays out of things, left me a voicemail that said, "Kira, I hope you know what you're doing to this family." I saved that voicemail. I still have it. On the 11th day, the mortgage application was denied. My name was formally removed from all associated documentation. My attorney filed the necessary paperwork to have the unauthorized hard inquiry flagged and disputed with all 3 credit bureaus. My sister did not get her house. I think the part people find hardest to understand when I tell this story is that I don't feel guilty. I have examined that feeling carefully the way I examine most things. I've asked myself whether I was being vindictive, whether there was a less nuclear option I should have taken, and here's what I keep coming back to. I didn't take anything from my sister. I removed something she had taken from me without asking. Those are not the same thing. She wanted a house. She could not afford a house on her own. Instead of accepting that reality, she, with my mother's help, decided to use my financial identity to get what she wanted, and they dressed it up as helping family, as it's not like it costs you anything. As if my name, my credit, my legal liability are just community property that anyone in the family can borrow without asking. The loan officer's call cost me nothing in the end. But it could have. If that income discrepancy hadn't been caught, the loan would have closed. My name would have been on a $340,000 mortgage for a house I'd never seen, and when, not if, when, given my sister's financial history, she fell behind on payments, it would have been my credit, my financial future, my carefully built stability that took the hit. They were willing to risk all of that because they knew I was good with money, and they had decided that meant my money, my credit, my financial identity was the family's to use. My mother called me 2 weeks after the denial. She was calmer by then, or at least performing calm. She said she wanted to talk, that she thought we had all overreacted, that she hoped I understood she had only been trying to help my sister. I let her finish. Then I said, "Mom, I need you to understand something. I love you. I am not going to stop talking to you. But I am never again signing a document in your presence without reading it in full, and I will not be handling any more family financial matters going forward. If someone needs money, they can go to a bank. If someone needs a cosigner, they can find one who actually agrees to it." She started to say something about family sticking together. I said, "I agree." Which is why I didn't press charges. She was quiet after that. My sister and I have spoken twice since then. Both times were brief, logistical, at family events where the alternative was making a scene, which neither of us wanted. She has not apologized. I have not expected her to. There's a version of my sister that exists in my memory. The one who taught me how to drive, who showed up with soup when I had the flu in college, who danced with me at our cousin's wedding until 2 in the morning, and I've had to figure out how to hold that version of her alongside the version who put my name on a mortgage without telling me. I have not figured that out completely yet. I don't think I'm supposed to have. What I have figured out is this. Being financially responsible doesn't make you a family bank. Being stable doesn't make you a safety net that anyone can deploy without asking. Saying yes to things doesn't mean you've agreed to say yes to everything forever. I helped my family for years because I wanted to, because I had more than I needed and they needed help, and that's what you do. The moment it stopped being a choice, the moment they decided they could take the choice away from me, it stopped being help. It became something else, and I wasn't willing to call that something else love. My credit score recovered fully within 4 months. My refinance went through in the spring, just like I'd planned. My rate is lower than my original mortgage by nearly a full point, which over the life of the loan is going to save me a significant amount of money. I think about that sometimes. I think about how close I came to losing that. How a Sunday evening at my mother's kitchen table, a stack of papers, and a granola bar in a parking garage could have derailed something I'd spent nearly a decade building. And then I think about the loan officer's voice when he said, "Were you not informed of this by the borrower?" He said it so gently, like he'd asked that question before, like he already knew the answer. I don't know if my sister has found another path to buying that house. I don't know if she's tried another lender, found another cosigner, reconsidered the whole thing. It's not my business anymore. I made sure it wasn't. What I do know is this: the next time my family passes me a stack of papers and asks me to sign at the bottom, I'm going to read every single one. Not because I don't trust them. I think we both know why. I've thought a lot about the word family since all of this happened, not in a bitter way. I'm genuinely past bitter at this point. More in the way you think about a word you've been using your whole life, and then one day you stop and realize you may have been using it wrong. For most of my 20s, I understood family to mean unconditional. I understood it to mean that you showed up, you gave what you could, and you didn't keep score. And I lived by that. I gave money I didn't ask back for. I gave time I couldn't recover. I gave my presence at the moments that mattered to them, even when it cost me something to be there. I did all of it willingly, without resentment, because I thought that's what love looked like when you were the one in the family who happened to have more stability than everyone else. What I didn't understand, what took me a parking garage and a loan officer's phone call to finally see clearly, is that unconditional love and unconditional access are not the same thing. My family had slowly, over years, collapsed that distinction. They loved me. I believe that genuinely. And they had also decided somewhere along the way that loving me meant they were entitled to whatever I had built: my credit, my name, my financial future. These things had stopped feeling to them like things that belonged to me. They had become family property, and when I didn't hand them over willingly, they found a way to take them anyway. That is the part that still sits with me. Not the fraud, exactly. That's a legal term, and legal terms feel clean and distant. What stays with me is the calculation behind it. My mother knew I would say no. She said as much afterward, without quite meaning to. Your sister really needs this, and I knew you'd make it difficult. She had thought it through. She had decided that what my sister wanted was more important than what I had agreed to. And rather than have that conversation openly, rather than ask me to make that choice for myself, she made it for me. She removed my ability to say no by making sure I didn't know I was being asked. I think about what it takes to do that to someone you love. I don't say that with anger anymore. I've moved past that too. I say it as a genuine question I've sat with, because I think the answer matters. What it takes is the belief that you know better than they do what they should do. It's a specific kind of disrespect dressed up as practicality. It says, your judgment doesn't matter here. Only the outcome does, and the outcome we want is more important than your right to choose. I don't operate that way. I have never taken anything from my family without asking. I have never put my name on something that affected them without their full knowledge, not because I'm a better person. I'm not making that argument, but because I understand deeply that the moment you start making decisions for someone else without their consent, you have stopped treating them as a person. You've made them into a means to an end. What Kira did, what I did, was refuse to be that. Quietly, methodically, without a scene. I called the right people. I submitted the right documents. I let the process work the way it was designed to work. And when it was over, my name was clean and the application was denied, and I called my mother and told her, calmly, where my limits were going forward. There's no version of the story where everyone wins. My sister didn't get her house. My relationship with my mother has a scar on it that wasn't there before. Those things are real and I don't dismiss them. But here's what I know. The consequences that fell on my family were the direct result of choices my family made. Not my choices. Theirs. When you use someone without asking, when you forge consent and call it help, you do not get to be surprised when the thing you built on that foundation collapses. That is not cruelty. That is just how cause and effect works. I rebuilt my refinance plan. I got the rate I wanted, I moved forward, and I read everything I signed now, every single word.